So here we are about 5 weeks away from Thailand reopening again to general travel, except of course for domestic travel, which the Thai government have been pumping up with billions in stimulus packages. Now both the TAT and the Thai Sports and Tourism Minister have spent the last 2 months insisting that Thailand will reopen from July the 1st, specifically Phuket, which will be the first pilot location before they roll out the Sandbox project to other popular tourist areas around the country. They're even launching a specific tourism campaign in foreign countries called Amazing Thailand, even more amazing than before.
Delicious and hygienic food delivery here is packed with friendship and big heartwarming smiles.
The question remains, however, will anyone come? In Phuket, there's been a mass vaccination program which has reached about 25% of the population, although that's thought to increase over the next week with a new delivery of vaccines. The target in the island province is 70% vaccination before the government considers it's safe to open. But even with the best of intentions, it's going to be a hard road to hoe to reach that target. Then there's the long list of questions that the government at this stage has failed to answer. One of the key issues for any tourist has been quarantine, obviously. It's 2 weeks out of your life and an expensive enforced stay just to enter a country. Exactly what the quarantine policy will be for people re-entering the country from July the 1st is yet to be announced. We assume it will be no quarantine. And if so, how long will people have to stay in Phuket before they're allowed to head to other destinations in the country? And that's just the start of the questions. Remember, all this is only 5 weeks away. What are people going to do when they get to Phuket? And to be clear, most businesses and hotels are closed at the moment. When I say most, I mean more than 95% along the whole west coast, the tourist towns of Patong, Kata, Karon, Kamala, Surin. Other parts of the island have a lot more activity, certainly along the east coast, where most of the locals and expats live. But these are not the tourist zones. Go on a tour boat to one of Phuket's many offshore islands. Well, good luck with that. Basically, they're all closed, boats stored, and the staff headed back to their provinces last year. So how is this vast tourist machine going to magically wind into gear? Obviously, there's going to be a dribble of initial tourists if and when they start coming back. And there will be a commensurate dribble of hotels, restaurants and tour trips opening as well. But these are going to be the brave few that are going to take a massive bet that the government won't capriciously just close the borders again when a few cases emerge from international arrivals. Next, where are these tourists going to come from? Some countries are not even allowing their citizens to leave, vaccinated or not. Australians, for example, have been told to forget international travel until next year, unless it's an urgent situation. And they're not the only ones. Well, what about families? If they can't get their kids vaccinated at the moment, which is the case in most countries and with most vaccines, you can forget any family tourism for a while. How about the tracking apps like More Chana? I've got it on my phone and it basically tracks my movements. Now, that doesn't particularly bother me, but there are plenty of Westerners that balk at the prospect of having a tracking app on their phone. And while we're working through the list of questions, how about vaccines? What proof or documentation will Thailand require to prove vaccination? The world still hasn't decided on a standard for vaccination passports or documentation. This also needs to be sorted out in the next few weeks. And how will these people get to Thailand? By air? Sure. But the number of flights and airlines capable of ferrying a large contingent of tourists at the moment is small. Of course, with increased demand, there will be more flights added, but the entire international aviation industry will take a long time to warm up again after being partially grounded for so long. Some airlines are now bankrupt. Others will have massive debt to service to repay government loans. Others will face enormous maintenance costs to get grounded planes up and running again. And presumably it won't be as cheap as it was in the past. Even Thailand's national airline, under its new rehabilitation plan, will be in no condition to provide cheaper flights into Thailand. Indeed, as of now, it's not even clear which planes it'll be able to use in the immediate future, as they continue to work with leasing companies over unpaid plane leases. And even if the borders are reopened, what sort of restrictions will remain in place? Will the Thai government roll back some of the paperwork and red tape to actually encourage tourists to return? Will the government come up with easier visa options? Will they subsidise travel and flight costs to lure some of the more adventurous travellers back to Thailand? Well, the entire world tourism industry has been hard hit, and there's going to be plenty of keen competition for the early drip of tourist dollars. Are the Thai government going to compete, or just think that they'll fling open the gates and count the marauding hordes of clamouring travellers to get back to the temples and Pattaya bars? If that's the case, and without trying to sound too Australian, tell them they're dreaming.
Tell him he's dreaming.
Be assured, even if the July 1 deadline is met, we're talking about hundreds of tourists to start with, maybe thousands in a few months. But millions? That's a long, long way off, if ever. The golden days of mass tourism for Thailand, which provided up to 20% directly and indirectly to the country's GDP, are a blurry dot in the rear-view mirror. As of today, Bangkok is a bit of a COVID basket case, with the majority of new cases each day upward of 2,000, with new clusters in high-density housing areas an ongoing problem. As for the shameful situation in the Thai prisons, well, the government have said they'll help the overcrowding problem by allowing 50,000 low-risk prisoners an early release. Luckily, the situation is slowly improving in most provinces, but Thailand's headline capital is a long way off being able to welcome back tourists. But even Phuket, the target of this magic July date, is still under virtual curfew with heavy restrictions on people coming and going. Everyone living here knows about the restrictions we live with every day. Most are common sense restrictions that we've all become accustomed to. But if you're a tourist, do you want to be wearing a mask in public all the time? Do you want to be socially distanced when going to a bar? I mean, do you want to face any restrictions at all? Probably not. You may as well stay home. Added to this, the country is still in an official state of emergency until the end of July. How will that impact on potential tourists coming back to Thailand? So, 5 weeks to go and the clock is ticking. We need answers. Hotels and tour companies need some clear information, if not millions in stimulus budget, to open when these first travellers arrive. None of this is going to happen immediately, and patience will be a virtue as we navigate the rocky road ahead. But just tell that to the owners and staff of hotels, restaurants, tour companies, mum and dad market businesses, etc., etc., etc.
Etc., etc., etc.
The months ahead are so crucial for Thailand's tourism future, it can't be overstated. The grand reopening of Thailand's borders will need to be well prepared, competently managed and professionally rolled out, along with massive government support. Otherwise, Thailand can kiss any sort of tourism industry goodbye for the next decade. To the tourist businesses of Pattaya, Chiang Mai, Hua Hin, Phuket, all the beautiful islands, and of course Bangkok, hang in there, continue to adapt, focus on the tourists that are available rather than wishing that things will return to the good old days of 2019. We all know they won't. Tim Newton reporting for the Thaiger.